Welcome to another edition of From the Perch. I'm Roman from the Orange Bowl Boys podcast and contributor for Canes Insight. This week, University of Miami versus the Duke Blue Devils. And at the end of these clips, hold tight. You have commentary from yours truly. People have this misconception that just because you're a spread team, that you're abandoning the run. And that couldn't be further from the truth. What the spread does, it allows you to have numbers. And this is exactly what Duke does on 3rd and 5. As you see this bunch formation outside the hash, you're going to see Miami combat this 3 with 3 of their own. It's a 3-by-1 look, and you have Miami in the boundary, one-on-one man up here at top. Now, this is what it does. It loosens up the box. Miami's only combating this with 6 in the box defenders, considering Duke has 7 when you have a mobile quarterback options. On the offensive side of the ball, they have already won in the numbers war. And this is what happens. He's going to go ahead and give the ball up. They're going to respect this zone read. Shaq Quarterman's going to just pause just enough. Even when you have some guys beating their blocks like Gregory Rousseau, just a little bit of a misfit and not getting there, and look what happens. First down for the Duke Blue Devils. I'm telling you, the spread is the way to go. You saw in the last clip by Duke how they used 3 bunch defenders out into the perimeter and how Miami was in a numbers bind once they decided to go ahead and combat this 3v3. Miami once again 6 in the box defenders, and when you have a mobile run threat in the quarterback for Duke, you're going to have 7 on 6. In this case, pay attention to Hill, and this is what the threat of the zone read can do. In this case, he pulls it astutely as Hill's crashing down onto the running back, and this is just a walk in the park. The quarterback would actually fool the cameraman and actually slide short of this first down marker. But in that case, once again, the spread and using numbers on the perimeter created advantage in the run game. This is going to be a 3rd and 2 failed attempt, but nothing new to the University of Miami when you consider they are dead last in the country, 130 out of 130 FBS schools in the country in this metric. But let's try to find out why. Here on this play, you're going to notice that they're going to motion down into the formation, into a bunch set, stacks close to the formation. And when you're in this ace gun look, that's going to put teams on a high alert for a toss play, which when you notice the play unfold, you're going to see this Mike linebacker for Duke flow very hard in that direction. He doesn't seem fooled. What else happens when you bring more in the box offensive guys? You have more in the box defenders. And Duke right here has 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the box defenders. So stylistically in motion, you're setting yourself up. Now, let's go ahead and see the execution. Right here, you have 2 Miami wide receivers going in on a knifing defensive end, which simultaneously is going to take out Corey Gaynor, who is pulling as a lead blocker. In this case now, the numbers advantage just went to Duke. You have 1, 2, 3 on one pulling guard, and then en route to Cam Harris to stop them short. And you want to know what else? This look right here. This look, this paints the whole picture. Because you want to know why? 12 games into the season, you still make mistakes. There is no wonder, there is no doubt, there is no surprise. At the end of the regular season, this look says, here we go, 1st and 10, and this is going to be a sack. In Miami, they're going to come out in 12-set personnel. Cam Harris in the pistol formation, and you have Will Mallory and the second tight end, Michael Irvin Jr., up here at the top of the screen. Now, in this case, I just want to remind the viewers watching that Miami is 13 out of 14 ACC schools in rushing. But that's not going to stop them from their play-action game. And here you go. Just the distance. At this point, Zion Nelson struggles on the outside rush. You know this. You're not helping them, and this is where you decide to put the quarterback. Bad things have happened all year, and you're not necessarily a great rushing team, so what do you think is going to happen? Well, he doesn't get up into the pocket. They're going to say, oh, that's pocket discipline. That's not where we need you to be. And yes, I agree. But this face says it all too. The fake punt deserves its own clip. Of course it does. Lou. Big Lou. You're going to see Duke up at the top. They're going to try to pressure Lou Headley's rollout side. Remember, he's an Australian rules style punter, and he likes to roll. Duke anticipated that. Miami actually with a good heads-up play on the special team side. Less people in the box means less margin for error. Less people in the box means less margin for error. This year, I felt Miami was victimized heavily on defensive line stunts. This play is not going to be any different. 3rd and 11, and obviously defenses can kind of pin their ears, get a little bit more exotic looking. On the outside, not very hard to figure out. You have 2 press corners. Now I want you to go ahead and focus interior to the left guard and right tackle. Left guard is going to use what's called a jump set. He's essentially jumping out to his defender. This is used quite heavily on play action sets. But when he does this, I think he over-rotates just a little bit, leaving this gap right here. Now focus on the right tackle. He's using what's known as a 45 set. And when he does that, once again, when you hear University of Miami offensive linemen are real easy to get on different levels, this is what they mean. And when you do that, you can see the lanes that are exposed for stunts. Well, you got to go back to that initial jump set, and here you go with a stunting defensive lineman. And right here, good astuteness. Yeah, sure, you had to drop your eyes a little bit to note the rush that was bare. I'm going to give you an A for today. Played pretty good against FIU, too. It's hard for me to give out A these days, so just take it. This is going to be a Robert Burns sighting here, 2nd and 10, and this is going to be a good play that's going to ultimately lead to a touchdown. Just going to be a screen, a little slip screen to Robert Burns. But I want you to see the awareness of KJ Osborne out here. Initially, he was going to come in to make the block on the first impeding defender. But when he sees Corey Gaynor go ahead and carry on that block, he astutely pulled, and that freed the block to get Robert Burns into the end zone. It's 1st and 10, and the University of Miami is threatening to go into Duke territory. The ESPN commentators didn't necessarily like this play selection, and I can't disagree, especially when you consider that the University of Miami was hampered with injuries early on in the game. Now, promptly and inexplicably, Kaleon Herbert's going to trip, and thus trip up Jaron Williams. Long developing pass play, and that is exactly what the problem was by the ESPN commentators. And now you're going to want your quarterback to step up. And step up into what? Step up into this mess. And there he goes. Sack. Now, at what point, just once, I want to hear an offensive coordinator or coach for that matter say, you know what? My game plan probably wasn't the best. And I put my kids at a disadvantage. Just once. That's all I'm saying. One time. One time. Just once I want to hear it. One. Do you remember earlier in the video when I showed you a play of Miami failing on 3rd down when they had somebody motion into the formation into essentially tight stack or bunch formation, and they did a quick toss into the boundary? Remember when that play didn't work because we didn't block it well? Well, guess what happens on this play? Exactly. They don't block it well, and it fails on 3rd down. But I want you to take note of something pre-snap. Miami's intending on doing a toss into the boundary, and look at what Duke has. They have 4 defenders into the boundary. You're going to try to block this with 3 when you ask Zion Nelson to pull. You have Will Mallory crashing in, and you have KJ Osborne who's going to go ahead and also block. Now, that's okay, 3 versus 4, because you're assuming that your running back is going to make that 4th safety miss. But here's the problem. The first threat, this guy that walks down, well, he's untouched. The second immediate threat, he's untouched too. So your 2 immediate threats get passed off, and this play is doomed for failure. That's twice now on 3rd down. Your play call was a toss into the boundary. First time it didn't work, shame on them. Second time it didn't work, shame on you, coach. I'm going to go ahead and try to highlight everything wrong in this play. First thing, take a look at John Campbell. He's going to get beat really clean. That's very, very clean. Now, right here, you have Will Mallory's going to go ahead and get washed out by Duke doing a good job. He's kind of victimized them a little bit on 3rd down. So they're going to run a mesh concept. And Danino's had one fail earlier in the game. He's running it from a little bit different formation this time, but nothing new. But look at the separation from the wide receivers. There is no separation. Everybody's blanketed. Everybody's covered. They took out your mesh. Duke's in prime position, and they beat your right guard. So let's go ahead and back this up. Hey, Canes fans. This is Roe. We're not going to have an Orange Bowl Boys podcast this week due to the bunker relocation aspect and my boy Toast. He's out and about. But I just wanted to take the time and get some of the things solo off my chest. Rough season. 12 games, Miami 6-6. And this arguably was the weakest schedule that I've seen in decades. I don't think there's a debate about that. And where do we go from here? Well, if you follow me along on Twitter, you're going to know that I'm very vocal about a certain aspect. I think it's about time that we join the rest of the country and join the space race, if you will, and adopt the spread offense. I mean, you can't argue the fact, and this is factual, out of the top 25 offenses in the country, those schools, they all run a version of the spread. It's not until team number 23 offensively, when you look at Boston College in a service school at 24, that you don't see anything else other than spread offensive teams. Just take some of the teams in the playoffs right now. The number one team in the country, Ohio State, what do they run? Look at LSU. LSU's a prime example. They spent 7 figures for Matt Canada. And all intents and purposes, Matt Canada is a brilliant coordinator. I like a lot of the run style that he puts. I like the pressure that he puts on defenses. It just wasn't a good fit for LSU. They go ahead and get some obscure guy from a New Orleans staff, and they are sitting atop the college football world in prime position for a playoff run and potentially a national championship. They're doing what I'm suggesting. You have Clemson, the ACC top dog. They run a pro spread with a check with me system. We had Malik Rozier on the Orange Bowl boys, and he even said it's not a complicated system for Clemson. It just has a way of keeping you off balance and has counters on things, and they play a really good aggressive style defense, and that's what's, catapulted them against Saban into national championship territory. So I'm pretty firm believer in that. And I just want to kind of go ahead and allude to our history, because our history will tell you, and I'm going to say a couple head coaching names. I'm going to say names like Manny Diaz. I'm going to say names like Mark Richt, Al Golden, Randy Shannon, and Larry Coker. When I say those names, that's going to evoke an emotion in most Canes fans, and probably not a good one. But I'm going to parallel this now, and I'm going to sit there and I'm going to tell you, here are some other names to consider. How about if I told you names like Patrick Nix, or Mark Whipple, James Coley? How about Mark Richt, the offensive coordinator, and now Dan Enos? When I say those list of offensive coordinators, can you sit there with full confidence say that that's a great list of names and that they did well here as offensive coordinators? As of today, Miami sits 13th out of 14 schools in the ACC in rushing offense. Do you know who 14th is? It's Pittsburgh's Mark Whipple. And you know what? I think that allegiance to the pro offense, it's something that through all the years, Miami's changed numerous factors. There's no doubt that it has. Miami has even updated its facilities. We've had new coordinators. We've had new head coaches. We've gotten an athletic director or two in that time frame. We've gotten even a president in that time frame. But the one constant that has remained is that Miami has this idiocentric ideology to this form of offense that if you pay attention to the rest of the country, it's not necessarily what's going on. And why would I say that? I mean, you have to have some substantive fact to why you can't, well, it seems like it's opinion. Well, the fact isn't what the teams are doing across the country, but the opinion of mine is this. If you don't have an offensive line to run a pro system, like a really bona fide pro system, then why bother? I think Miami proved it this year by having 20 more sacks than a year ago, that they necessarily didn't have the offensive line to substantiate this form of offense. I don't even think that's really a debate. So if you don't have the offensive line to run a complex pro system where maybe you're taught and told to hold the ball a little bit longer, long developing play action pass plays, a lot of intricate blitzes that come with stacking the box means more in the box defenders. And the other part being is, and if you go and comb across the country and look at other message boards, which I occasionally do sometimes, you'll see that teams like USC went through this same philosophy. Like, we make a lot of mistakes with this pro offense because we just don't have the time. We don't have the time anymore to sit there, and offense has evolved so much and defenses has evolved. Those simple pro offenses in the past that could work, they don't work now. There's RPOs. There's everything that gets involved with this. There's all these looks that you have. And the reason why pros work in the NFL, because they're not student athletes and they can put in 100 hours a week. You don't have that same time constraint in the NFL that you do in college. So those are my two opinions on the matter. But I really don't think that's all that too far-fetched or even debatable. So in this case, why not join the space race? Do you think a UCF team up north is going to go ahead and win a national championship, a fake one, mind you, in a pro-style offense? Those top 4 teams in the country right now, who are they and what are they doing? They've joined the space race. And here you go. Here's Miami, content with just pounding themselves into the ground. 110-win year in 17 seasons. One 10-win season, 17 years. Just one. One thing has remained. So, I would really like Miami to consider that. I think it's about time. I think it's essentially a step in the right direction, a step in the future. Is it this catch-all? Is it going to go ahead and cure everything? Maybe, maybe not. There's examples of teams putting in the spread and maybe not doing so well. But at this point, what can it hurt? What can it hurt not to try to get a brilliant mind that's an innovator in his field? Look for innovation. I think Manny Diaz, even in his own career, can parallel this. I really do. Because I only called a radio station one time in my life, and it was the Big O Show. And you know the reason why? Because I wanted to call him after 14 games in the Al Golden era to tell him that I don't think that Mark D'Onofrio's system, that 34, with that propensity to put weight on South Florida players, was going to work. To his response, well, Big O told me, boss, he doesn't have the horses. And wouldn't you know it, 5 years later, he was fired. And he got some horses. He put some people in the NFL. And what happened? Manny Diaz happened. And Manny Diaz implemented a single gap attack system, 4-3, multiple. I would classify more multiple. He gave his guys freedom, and they took that freedom, that space, and they essentially catapulted Miami's defense to a respectable level to the point it was a top 3 defense that made Canes fans proud, and it essentially was a tackles for loss and turnover machine. Everybody said, no, it's the players, it's the players. And I was like, no, I think the system matters too. So Manny, you proved it. You proved it with the right system, what could happen. And now I'm looking at Dan Enos as the modern day version of Mark D'Onofrio, the offensive version of that. Because after a year, and I take it objectively as much as I can to say what it is, I'm a student of this. That's all I've ever claimed to be. I just love watching film as a former quarterback just for fun. I like to do this. It's something that intrigues me. But at the end of the year, I can comment after a 6-6 season and say, I see a lot of that same tendency that made me call Big O many, many years ago. It's the same one now. I don't think this system and taking South Florida players and putting them into a phone booth, I don't necessarily think that's the best thing for them. I just watched an FIU team beat Miami, shock the world. Shock Miami. It didn't shock the world anymore. Beating Miami doesn't shock the world anymore, Canes fans, and that's a brutal reality we need to face. But I watched an FIU team beat Miami, and how? They took somebody like Gregory Rousseau, who's now tied for second in sacks in the country, and FIU gave up not a single sack. Now, along that offensive line, I don't think you're going to find anybody that would have been recruited over any of the people we have on our offensive line. But what did they do? They just spread it out, and they got rid of the ball quick, and they were able to shock Coral Gables. So, why don't we try? Why don't we adapt a system that's going to use what we have to our advantage? Our offensive line can't hold up at the point of the attack very well. They get victimized way too easy by simple stunts. They get split leveled too many times. They lose their technique. And they face a lot of mess because this pro-tight system brings a lot of mess involved with them. So let's spread it out. You know what's going to benefit and who's going to benefit the most? So, Ro, you're a former quarterback. Of course you want to spread it out because you just want to throw everywhere. No, I don't. Miami, I actually want to run the ball. And it's just easier to run the ball when you have space and spread avenues. I'm just going to ask this question, real simple. Is it easier to go 5-0 or 7-0? 5-0 or 7-0? I think everybody can default and say it's easier to go 5-0 than it is 7-0. Well, in a spread system where you have 5 offensive linemen, if you have everybody out, guess how many successful blocks you need? 5. When you end up having 2 tight ends or a tight end and a fullback, or maybe 2 tight ends and a fullback, you either need 7 successful blocks for a successful run play or 8, because you're going to bring people in there with it. I want to run the ball, people. I'm not going to even hide about that. I want to run for over 200 yards a game. I want to have an offense that goes ahead and puts up 500 yards. I want to have an offense that instills fear in the fan bases of other teams that we play. I want an offense that's cutting edge. I want an offense that Manny Diaz promised. And that, 6-6 with Dan Enos, that's not it. And I don't care what anybody can try to tell me. After the 2 most abysmal and poor back-to-back losses in probably school's history, modern-day history, as long as I've been a fan, I can't recall a loss to a Division II school and then a 4-win Duke team. After that's all said and done with, I think change is needed. It's on you, Manny Diaz. You're up next, Holmes.